Control is a game developed by Remedy, the famous developers of Max Payne, known for their high-octane, third-person shooter action games. I had also played their recent game, Quantum Break, and had mixed feelings about that one, but I had heard lots of hype around Control, and of course I'll almost always be interested to play anything by this dev, so I eventually got it for cheap, without knowing anything about the game other than it has a female protagonist that uses super powerful abilities, like throwing objects with your mind. That's what I gathered from the trailer. There is no difficulty selection, the game just has one difficulty. I found that intriguing at the start. You play as a female protagonist known as... actually, I don't even know her name. It's played from a standard third-person perspective with controls you would expect. Standard running and jumping, moving around, pressing X to interact with the environments, and so on. The game has you starting off going through these sequences of government agency buildings with a weird weaving narrative about this guy named the Director who unalives himself, and somehow now you're this new leader of this government thing. Then you encounter some monsters known as the Hiss. Usually they're just this standard government soldier looking guys with red eyes and this weird hazy fog around them that attacks you on sight. But as the game progresses, you encounter more and more monster types with varying levels of unique abilities. For the first bit of the game, you're taking missions to go through this big government agency complex of various floors and sectors. But a problem I have is that the whole game, there's this sense of lack of direction, and frequently it turns into a "where the hell do I go?" kind of game. Unlike other similar games in the genre, there's no HUD marker of where to go next. There is, however, a map that you can pull up, but this map is atrocious and borderline useless. It covers up almost the whole screen while it's up, so you can barely look at it while navigating. It is also very vague on if you should go up or down to get to the marked icon. It's just sort of a mess, and I never got comfortable navigating my way around the game. Instead of relying on this map, you'll have to look around at the in-game world for signs and to try to navigate this place using signposts, but the game will often bar off areas with this red wall until you kill the enemies. Sometimes though, it's inconsistent. Sometimes the wall will have nothing to do with killing enemies, but breaking some objects or something. It's frustrating, and I found myself walking in circles far too often doing nothing. It's funny because it's not really the kind of game that rewards exploration. Yes, there are slight RPG mechanics. It almost feels like a case of, well, we have to have RPG mechanics because every other game does. This is trivial, simple stuff, like as you kill enemies and progress through the game, you unlock points to put into basic things, like multiple tiers of increased health, energy, or increasing your damage and stats. There's also mods you can unlock, like putting attachments on your guns, or personal mods to give yourself little buffs like more health, or better health pickups, or less energy when using dashing or sprinting, and so on. But it's very minor, almost unimportant. It's not like a fully fledged RPG thing. I only played with it a few times the whole game. To reiterate, it's not like the game massively rewards exploration. So the argument of trying to say it would take away from the game to just have a basic arrow or indicator on the screen showing where to go, that it would ruin immersion, doesn't work. It just hampers the gameplay experience and adds this unnecessary frustration and time wasting and annoyance to navigate through this game. It doesn't help that almost everything in the game looks the same. It's all just various degrees of warehouses and offices and factory-looking machinery. That's it. There's a few dreamlike sequences where it goes into these fourth wall breaking meta floating cube areas to be quirky and different or something, but these moments kind of just fall flat and feel lazy, like they didn't want to bother making another level or scene, and gave you this bare bones development blocks to pass through as some dream sequence. Well, how's the combat then? You start off with just a basic pistol and you have infinite ammo, but once the ammo counts down, it has a cooldown and slowly refills. In the beginning it's a very basic shooter. Enemies come out in waves, you spam them with your pistol, and that's really it. There's no health regen, which is a questionable decision. Enemies drop health orbs that you can run over to refill, but by default you don't get much health from it. You need to use mods to get more. Mods as in like the skill tree, not downloading mods. Eventually, it takes way too long. You start to unlock other guns. I say guns because it kind of just shapeshifts from the pistol into this slightly altered pistol form. It's pretty disappointing and not that fun. It feels like the game basically has one gun. The other guns I tried were not exciting. This spin gun that acts kind of like a machine gun, but it's inaccurate with bad damage and takes way too long to reload. The shotgun, which I used for a total of 2 minutes before realizing it's useless because you can't get close to enemies in this game since there isn't regenerating health. And finally the charge laser shooting gun, where you hold down fire to charge it up and then release it to do massive damage. I ended up using the pistol and charge gun the entire game, swapping to charge to deal damage to the higher armored and bullet sponge enemies. The guns were not fun to use or exciting, and the lack of variety or even real guns was a detriment. The game also progresses, and you unlock these superhero powers like the ability to grab objects and throw them across the map at enemies. It seems like these powers are the game's biggest selling point and the main attraction, and yeah, the particle effects and physics on display here are satisfying. It does have a nice oomph to it when you slam an enemy in the face with a massive block from a wall. I mostly use this ability between the gun reloading, which is how it seems to be used. You can throw objects while the gun reloads, so it's this sort of rhythm of shooting guys and tossing objects that can get kind of fun and amusing to do. But for a while, that's all the game has going for it. Lackluster gameplay with this throw ability, and visually generic or unappealing office room after office room, very annoying navigation with this shitty map system. Later on you unlock another ability, this floating ability, that makes the game look really goofy. You just kind of levitate across the whole map, floating around like Superman or something. Then you have to use it to jump to various high places that aren't always marked in an obvious way, wasting more time. But that's really all the game has to offer in terms of combat mechanics. I was actually expecting more from the powers, but the ones on offer are pretty unimaginative. But, as I said, at least the physics are entertaining enough. The game has 10 story missions, which get accepted automatically and progress you through them automatically. You do, however, get tons of side missions and can track them manually. I didn't bother to do a single one of these, as I wasn't really particularly having a blast with the main missions, so what are the chances wasting my time with the side content is going to boost my enjoyment? A little chance. There are tons of them though, like 40 something. And like I said, the game doesn't massively reward you for grinding for XP or finding new guns or unlocks. It's just these unappealing unlocks and basic bonuses that you get in abundance anyway, so the side content really just felt pointless. And the narrative is really, really nonsensical garbage. Let me touch on that. The game's story is produced by Sam Lake, the guy that did the Max Payne face. He was in charge to come up with this clusterfuck of a plot. I'm not going to sit here and do like a movie review of the script. That's not what I'm here for. But the plot is so pants-on-head silly that it's laughable to try to follow it. And it's not just me. Someone was watching me play this virtually the entire time, and they couldn't wrap their head around what the hell was going on. It all just seemed like a joke. Almost like someone was purposely making fun of story writing as a medium. None of it makes sense. Time travel, alternate dimensions, you unaliving yourself over and over, FBI government spy subplot, constantly breaking the fourth wall, this projector thing transporting you to the alternate dream worlds, this goofy close-up zooming in on the main character's little sparkle and gleam in her eyes while she does this inner monologue, the extremely bland, lame, forgettable characters that play it all way too safe, the main character's motivation about finding her brother Dylan, as if to say family is the most important thing in the world, like wow, how original. There's no depth, no nuance and personality. It all comes across as this try-hard, pretentious joke of a plot that I quickly found myself not giving a damn about and just found myself laughing at it. Oh yeah, the respawn system tries to take a note from the Souls games or something. They give you these respawn points that basically act like bonfires, letting you warp around and upgrade skills. And if you die far away from these control points, you lose minutes of progress spawning back at the last one. There's no checkpoints or autosaves. You just go all the way back, again, pointlessly wasting your time. I get that there should be some penalty for dying, but this is just tedious and time-wasting, not punishing or challenging. For much of the game, I was just sitting there muttering to myself, ugh, this is so bad, this is painful. Almost like groaning in pain at how annoying a lot of these sections were to get through. Mostly because of the respawn system, but also because of the combat just being genuinely bad a lot of the time. There's a very frequent thing where you will be fighting enemies doing fine, then out of nowhere, you'll just explode and instantly go down to 1% health. I still have no idea what exactly does this, and it's a big problem because it's so threatening and hard to get health. You can't just go to the corner and wait for it to come back. Once this happens, you're basically screwed, and you can kiss your progress goodbye, going far back to the last spawn point. This happened a lot. Other times, the game's graphics would change everything into this bright shade of red, almost entirely obscuring the field of combat and any visual cues. There was this one boss fight in particular, this guy called like Salvador or something, and the entire arena was red and he would instantly explode you, but it was near impossible to see anything because of this obnoxious filter. The arena was swarmed with dozens of enemies. It was this terrible, headache-inducing, frustrating fight that took dozens of attempts. It felt like fake difficulty, mostly because I can't see anything. Finally, I beat him by sitting back in a corner and sniping him with the charge gun. It wasn't very exciting. Not sure what else there is to say. The game uses real actors in some of the cutscenes, which is kinda jarring, but also amusing. But like I said, I just couldn't get into the pretentious, silly plot. It was hard to get invested or care. Even by the end of the game, I was just zoned out and I couldn't tell what the hell was happening anymore. There's not really that many cool parts in the entire game. A few times you go into these alternate dimension chamber places of like giant bridges and cube worlds, which is kinda interesting and trippy. There's this one place called Maze of Astray, where it allowed me to progress there before I was supposed to, making me walk in circles for like 30 minutes for no reason, because the wall wouldn't open up. I had to come back later. Yeah, thanks for that one. It's like the in-game map actually lies to you and tells you to go to the wrong place, or just confuses the hell out of you. So annoying. Later on, I went there when I was supposed to, and it was like kind of an entertaining segment. This rock music played and the walls were opening up and it was going crazy. It was visually stimulating and almost fun. Afterwards, the character said to herself, "That was awesome," which kinda ruined it. Please don't tell me when the game is awesome. That's like a comedian saying, "You should laugh now." I had higher hopes that I would enjoy this game, being the developer that it is, with its history, but I don't know, I just couldn't get into it very much. The graphics can be striking and visually impressive, with the RTX ray tracing feature and the settings cranked, but it's not like this is a mind-blowing greatest graphics ever game that I've seen some people say. Really, the only impressive graphics is the physics and particle systems, and some of the reflections. The actual environments are pretty dull looking, and the levels themselves are generic and bland. Even the last mission just wasted my time. It turned me into some ordinary office worker, where I go around delivering mail packages and picking up coffee mugs. Like, what the hell? Again, I get it's for some narrative reason, but the narrative sucks. When the game was over, it made me keep playing it, but in this new uniform. Like, hey, you can free roam and do all the side content. Yeah, that's not happening. But it did give me new main missions, which I thought was odd. I played those for 20 minutes or so, then I realized it automatically launched into the DLC expansion. Yeah, not happening. I also hate when games do that. Please make it very clear that it's the DLC and not the main campaign. Maybe one day if I'm desperate, I'll play the DLC, but not anytime soon. 4 out of 10.